Hey, welcome everybody. We are once again live. This will be our second time going live on Instagram. So let me quickly pop over to Instagram and click that go live thing if it will let me. Oh, the tab's been open too long. It's not going to let me.
I know.
Okay. We're having trouble streaming to Instagram. You think, StreamYard? Thanks guys. Thanks. Okay, no Instagram guys, no Instagram, but we are here on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Welcome everybody. Sound off in the chat when you join us. And for once, we were just saying we don't have any announcements.
That's right.
I'm so happy we can just get into it. The Kickstarter is over. It was unfortunately, but you know what? I'm going to rephrase that. I was about to say it was not successful.
That's right.
I'm going to rephrase. It did not fund, but
it was a great first step.
It was. We got 132 backers on our very first Kickstarter, which
great
is
marketing.
I followed so many Kickstarters that I know that number for a very first one is kind of uncommon, unless you're a big name creator already and you're coming right in with, or maybe not big name, they're going to get much more than 100 something established in some way, and you're bringing your fan base. I didn't have an email list, I didn't have nothing, and we were just like, here's a Kickstarter, fingers crossed, let's go. And 132 backers, that is a success in my book. We will be relaunching in just a couple of weeks with some extra tiers, so people can drop some more money but get some really amazing things out of that. We can't announce it yet. I'm still talking to some creators on what we're going to be putting together, but we are going to be adding some new items for Armageddon Quest, that classic 1980s comic about the Antichrist. It is coming back. We do plainly have the interest to make it a reality, this 1980s comic a reality in 2024. So look for that coming in probably early to mid-March. I'm going to try to make it like 1 month at max, and we're going to be back and launching again. Exactly. But today we have another very special guest, Will Allred, creator of CROSSOVER DIVISON, and we are going to welcome him and talk all about it right after we play our opening. You know you want to hear the theme song, guys. I want to hear the theme song.
That's why they're here.
That's awesome.
All right.
I love that.
Yay. I know I've had a story I've told in the past where my initial choice when I picked the theme song, when I picked the, because you have to pick something that's in public domain that you can use in a song and whatnot. We didn't get anyone to compose that. And when I picked the first one, it was like this little classical string guitar, just playing like very, like almost, what's that old television show? Something Theater, the Masterpiece Theater, right? It was just like, and I played it for people, and they were like, "Don't you want something a little more upbeat, like something get a little life into things?" I was like, maybe. And then I came back with that. Everyone laughed out loud the moment they heard it, and I was like, "All right, sold. That's our theme song. We're good to go." But anyways, everyone, welcome Will Allred. The first time on the Line of Comics.
But before we start there, Will, you got to give the people some background on this amazing picture over your left shoulder.
There we go. So that's Otis. That's our Basset Hound.
Count Otis?
Yeah. We call him Sir. He's he runs everything. I have a day job, but my primary existence is Basset Hound support staff.
Yes.
So that's a picture that we had of him and my son's. There's a website that you can go to get a painting. This is the ambassador version of it. Cool. we call it the ambassador, because I love a good pun.
Absolutely.
But they got it for my wife a couple years back, so I think it makes a pretty. I needed one of those pipes that blows the bubbles out of it, and I can take that.
I love it.
Yeah. I also, frankly, your bookshelf is really impressive just for how organized it looks.
Yeah. Mine is pure chaos.
Color. It's color coded virtually. I'm kind of eyeballing it and just being like, all right, that's like for me, I'm just like books go where they fit. It's like there is virtually no rhyme or reason.
Well, I've got a lot of. I try to keep like the omnibuses together, so they're on.
By the way, there will on a previous episode. I've decided it's omnibuy.
We will go with omnibuy. I hereby bless that. There you go. And then I've got a lot of, like on this side, you can't see a lot of there's lots of different sizes for, just all of the collections and everything.
Very cool.
My official handbook of the Marvel Universe hardcovers are like way up over there. And, I, I, I don't say that I have a problem. I say that I have it figured out.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. You do. I mean, compared to the rest of us, frankly.
Oh yeah.
I'm just looking at that thing, and it's like
yeah.
uniform. It's kind of color coordinated. It's so neat looking for a bookshelf, and that is the way. Like in movies, you always see like really neat bookshelves in the background, and I'm like, bullshit. That does not exist. Like that does not happen.
You're right, because you can't see.
Yeah, right. So you chose
it's a curated.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So on the topic of that amazing bookshelf behind you, so Crossover Division, which we're here to talk about, right?
Yeah.
This is a comic book. A lot of you who are watching might be familiar with Will, might be familiar with Crossover Division already, but for those who are not, or those watching later and are not, Crossover Division is a story about literary works crossing over, bleeding into our real world. And then the sort of secret agency, for lack of a better term, organization, and I think they call their people agents, right? When they're going around trying to stop nullify the crossovers, going around trying to get those the crossing over to go away and to get reality back to the way it's supposed to be. And we follow two agents, one newbie, of course, and one a bit more of an old hand, but hardly a Tommy Lee Jones type, not old hand.
Yeah.
But still, they're both still very young.
Is the reference for that, actually, yeah.
Right. It's kind of like Supernatural, right? The older brother, younger brother, but still very much young adult brothers, kind of a thing. So they're going around trying to stop the crossovers. So literary works, obviously, books, fiction, literary fiction, like this is something that you're very into. I can see how seemingly clean and neat and organized, like a librarian, you are behind you. So at curiosity, I knew this once upon a time, but I'm blanking on it, and I did not prepare before this episode and look this up again. Your day job, what do you do outside of comics?
Well, I've for a very long time I worked in IT at the University of Arkansas.
Okay.
Which one of the great things about the University of Arkansas was, while I was working there for so long, because I'm old, I don't know if you can tell that. Maybe I have a little bit of white here. I don't know. But one of the great things about working at a university, at least at the U of A, was that I could take time off during the day to take classes. So when it took me a long time, but I got some degrees in English.
Right.
And that was, I love the idea of, the public domain, this cultural inheritance that we have.
Absolutely.
And but even further than that, because I could go out to, and I actually taught for a while at a community college while I was working at the U of A, and I got to teach. I was just teaching like basic English, and then they actually let me teach a couple of classes on comics, which I thought, suckers, you're paying me for this. But you can go almost to anybody. You can go up to somebody in the street and say, "Hey, have you ever heard of Frankenstein?" Right?
Right.
Sure, I've heard of Frankenstein. Have you read it? No. No, I've never read it. I don't know how.
But they've read like 24 Frankenstein spinoffs in public domain, right? That's why they know about it.
Or
for the most
seen
part.
a dozen film and television.
A million adaptations. Yeah.
Exactly. And the same like with Dracula. When I went back, so Dracula, we crossed over with Dracula in issue number 2, and I went back to Dracula to reread it. And like, holy crap, this is an epistolary novel. It's all journal entries and letters to people. I'm like, where's the suspense? Obviously, they survived. They wrote a freaking letter about it, right? So I was like, this is not, what so many people have remade it, and that's part of what really kind of attracts me to, not necessarily the entire public domain, but a lot of these works that people just know because it's baked into our culture at this point, right?
Yeah, right.
And you take a book like Frankenstein. I So we're launching 5 right now. That's on Kickstarter. I've written
Mhm.
up through issue 14, and then I've just finished 16 and have started 17.
Holy smokes.
So now those are drafts.
Sure.
So James
Still.
Powell, the editor, and I are
Still.
going to have to beat the crap out of these. But it's going to
Still,
be a
that
20.
alone is impressive.
Right.
Just
We're
let's
still
just
going to
stop
look
there.
at you in minor awe, right? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to 20. Kevin Joseph and I used to joke about this when we had Explain Yourselves, which was our show for a while, where
Right.
we tried to bring Kickstarter creators on and just give back to the community, because the community is so supportive. I mean, and I
Mhm.
think you guys saw a little bit of that recently, right? You know, I
100%.
mean, it's just
A lot of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we joked with people, you know, don't do what we do. You know, I said, hey, I'm going to do a 20 issue series. Idiot.
Right.
You know, Kevin's doing, I think, 32 for Tart. You know, I'm like, oh my
Well, I
God,
thought it was
you
like
know what?
27, 20, but
Maybe
more than
yeah,
20, more than 20.
yeah. And I'm like, why did I choose 20? What, you know, I'm like, okay, well, you've got your structure, you're doing this, and I'm like, still, I could have, stupid. You know, am I going to
Right.
live to see the end of this? You know, basically.
Right.
But you know, I really, really enjoy it because I can play with, you know, these, you know, almost mythical toys, right?
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that I do like to do, because, you know, I maybe I don't treat them so well. Issue 7's coming up. Pablo's actually working on the art for issue 7 right now.
Okay.
Um, I don't necessarily treat the author of that work very kindly,
Yeah.
because he was a bad person. How I'm
Yeah.
gonna, I'm gonna,
A product
I'm,
of his time.
yes, very much a product of his
That's the
time.
nicest way to say it. Yes.
Well, he was even worse. He was even bad for his time.
So he was
So,
bad for his time. So never. So don't say it nice. Just
yeah,
screw that.
yeah. H.P. Lovecraft, right? We're doing
Yeah.
a Call of
Okay.
Cthulhu.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
yeah. So however, I don't, you know, as bad as he was, there are fans of that work. So what I try to
Oh yeah.
do is, yeah, which is one of the reasons why we're doing it, right? One of the things I try to do in every issue is I leave a page
Mm.
and I write an essay about the work that we're crossing over with, and say, you know, this is where you can go find out more. You can go find it, you know, on Project Gutenberg. You can, you know, this is when it was published. This was who it was by. This is, you know, these things, so that you're not necessarily depending on me and my biases. You can go to the source and see why you think it's cool, not necessarily why I thought it was cool or worth crossing over
Right.
with, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
100%.
You know,
We
it's
got a couple
curious.
comments. Real quick,
Okay.
Dallas. Real quick.
Yeah.
Mary Puppo, if I'm pronouncing your last name right, so sorry if I'm not. Mary, welcome to Wine and Comics. That is so many issues. It is. I mean, by Big Two standards, it's nothing, but by every other standard,
By an
it's
individual
like
creator, that's amazing.
It's
such
stupid.
well, we dumb. It's someone
Yes.
someone on Facebook user, whoever you are, Facebook user, sound off in the comments. Facebook ain't telling us. But welcome. If you're a regular, hello again. If not, welcome. If you're the first time.
You know, it's
yes,
so
Dallas,
curious,
sorry.
Will. I love this public domain idea. I've kind of been toying with, you know,
it's Kevin.
That's
Welcome, Kevin.
Kevin. Hey, Kevin. Public
Hey, man.
domain stuff for a while, and specifically in art. A lot of the museums, right before COVID, they started doing this Creative Commons,
Oh, cool.
you know, creative use thing with a lot of the artwork on their collections. And I started doing an entire project, which I actually finished but never released, a similar thing, sort of taking a fictionalized version of the featured icon in the image, and then extrapolating from that a kind of narrative, and then giving some sort of context for the subject
cool.
and the creators. And I think it's fascinating. I love that you guys you're putting that much energy into this, because it not only does it sort of just reinvigorate the IP, it also gives context, which I think kind of gets lost in translation sometimes. So fantastic on that.
Yeah, specifically like Dracula. One of the things that really fascinated me about Dracula was not it was all done with letters and journals, which I was like, "Ugh, boring,
Yeah.
whatever.
You're right.
But it was specifically the inherent misogyny of it, because
Yeah.
you have the brides of Dracula
Right.
who are
Mhm.
shown to be like the most, they're scarier than Dracula, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
But what are they? They're women that are free.
Right.
That's
Right.
I mean, that's
It's like, wait a minute, what?
Right.
Yeah.
And goodbye, Kevin. We will catch you later. He's almost out of battery.
Yeah. So, it was, that's what kind of drew me to, what we focused on in Dracula was not necessarily the big scary Dracula with the big white mustache, by the way, which is what he had in the novel.
All right.
But the brides, and how, I don't know, I was really pleased with the way that one turned out.
Okay.
Crazy enough, just today I saw an image of an artist who did a rendering, a 3D wax rendering of what the Frankenstein's monster would look, what it would look like based on the descriptions from the novel. And it's kind of creepier than anything else I've seen, actually, and the fictionalization.
Let's see. Probably no bolts and not
no
green,
bolts,
right?
No bolts and not green, right? Thanks, Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that really fascinated me about Frankenstein. Actually, Frankenstein is, it's number 16. So I just finished the draft of it, and to me, Frankenstein really is a super, super insightful Gothic novel written by an extraordinarily intelligent woman about a father and a son.
Right.
I mean, and I'm like, this is brilliant, right? I mean,
dressed up as a horror novel, which is not something that women are still, throughout history, there are not well known.
Just the trouble she had in getting people to take it seriously.
Yeah. And and she was. Have you read? She did another book called The Last Man.
No,
I have not. No.
Which you have basically a guy surviving kind of a plague or a pandemic. Gosh, we don't have any experience with that, right? And it's it's also kind of in that Gothic horror mode as well. But she's a really interesting writer, and I just so much ahead of her time, really.
And she was embraced by the other, like she was a part of a small clique of like the writers, the Gothic writers at the time. And they were all like, there was never a question in their minds either that she belonged and was, hugely a part of that, which is, for the times, especially kind of bizarre. Like, sort of like, I mean, the skill level she had to have to just belong amongst the others and have them like not question it is like, that tells you something.
Well, true, but a couple of them famously were absolute assholes to her. But yeah,
of course. I get the feeling though they were also famously assholes to pretty much everyone in the world. Like they were, yes, especially.
And that's for me. And I'm probably a snob about this, and I own it, whatever. But in my mind, Percy Shelley, her husband, the romantic poets of that time, Wordsworth, Coleridge. In my mind, poetry didn't really matter or mean much to me until I read the Romantics. I'm like, can I curse on this? I don't. Okay.
Absolutely.
Holy shit! This is poetry. This is what this. And I mean,
you discovered the language of it, right?
It's just like this is Ulysses. I mean, I love like the last 10 lines of Ulysses. I just it's just like this is holy freaking crap. This is what poetry is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be E.E. Cummings, making shit lowercase. So I mean, granted, E.E. Cummings is a much better writer than I am.
I'm putting that on a T-shirt. This is poetry. It's not supposed to be E.E. Cummings putting everything in lowercase. That's fantastic.
Well, and I think poetry is about, because prose, I got this through prose before poetry, but I think poetry is kind of that breakthrough, or the mental breakthrough of what language can do, right, and what it can achieve. When for us on an everyday basis, language is just communicating simply, straightforward. It's why a lot of people freak out when they first experience language being used for other means, and they call it flowery, and they sort of reject it, and they're like, what are all these words? Just say what you mean and let's move on. And that's such a shame, because when you see it done well, and that's the thing, it's a skill, not everyone can do it.
Oh yeah,
but when you encounter it, it is eye-opening. You're just like, that's like when every, especially in prose, when like every fucking sentence could be a line in poetry, and you're like, how are you doing this? This is hundreds of pages of this crap. Like, this is incredible. And it just, it's
as a person who unfortunately does that in screenplays.
Yes, he does.
You know, it's I had that kind of feeling when I was reading let's see, where is the Kingkiller Chronicles? Who writes the Kingkiller Chronicles?
Oh, Patrick Rothfuss.
Rothfuss,
no.
Yeah,
that is the one. Okay,
yeah, Rothfuss. I remember reading that and going, "Oh my God, this guy freaking gets it!" You know, he's got such a lyrical approach to his prose, and I'm like,
yes, cadence in prose is so right. It's so interesting how important that can be, because it's not poetry, so you're not metered or anything like that. And so, but there's still like, there's something about how prose can just roll and hit these highs and lows of when you're supposed to get the point, to like get that emotion and get it be more evocative. And when someone can do that in prose, that's where I'm really like that. And of course, turn a phrase, things that are very just the writer that truly opened my eyes to that, I think, was Mark Helprin, originally, the Winter's Tale guy and whatnot. The first time I read one of his books, I'd never read any Mark. I didn't even know who he was. I just had picked up a Winter's Tale, kind of like, this sounds interesting. It was way weirder than I thought it was going to be. I'm not even sure I could tell you what happened in the book. Like, don't get me wrong. But his writing, like, that was the first book where I was like, I'm along for the ride just because I can't stop reading this. It's so beautiful. And plot-wise, you've lost me, but everything else is incredible. And that was the first time having someone lose me with the plot, I still cared and still went along for it. And that I'd never experienced that before.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because as much, you know, as lyrical and as, you know, amazing as the language of Pat Rothfuss is in those two books, and I'm hoping for the third. Come on, Pat.
The seventh Game of Thrones, the seventh Song of Ice and Fire, the third Kingkiller Chronicles. The last Dune, which didn't happen until posthumously. Wheel of Time didn't happen until posthumously. So we shall see. We shall see.
We shall see. But I think probably one of my favorite writers, who's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, is Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Yeah.
The old pulp writers, I think they had this understanding of, I've got to keep it moving, and I got to keep them engaged. And they make you turn those pages, and it's not with flowery language. It's just with this driving plot that, you know, it's so focused. And you know, the pulp writers of the early 20th century are just like, you know, they're masters of that. You know, they really are.
They're the guy who wrote Doc Samson. Am I saying the Bronze Man of Bronze? Am I saying his name right? Doc Savage. Doc Savage. Yes. So the guy who, I know, he wrote a novel a month, which is insanity. But he said he had the formula, and it was like this many pages, and then this many pages, then this many pages, and this is how the plot goes. And it was like he was just tick, change the names out. The action can be slightly different, but it's like it is the same story and the same form every single time.
You know, by the time we get to those pulp writers, though, not only have like attention spans changed, but also it's become the sort of popular industry in terms of writing. Like you said, Dave, the audience
time novel, right? It's like it was cheap and throwaway, and
the exact same thing every time in terms of the format. And so once those guys got those formulas down, they were off and running.
Which, you know, and that's where so much of the DNA of comics comes from, right? You know, it's it's those pulps, the guys that were writing for the pulps, early science fiction. You had Alfred Bester, writing Green Lantern, right, with all things. So that's that need to drive the plot forward, and that brevity and economy of words and economy of everything, really, I think has been baked into comics, from the beginning. And and then you have Bendis, but anyway, sorry, that was a bad joke,
and decompressed storytelling and all those things, which are like the exact,
people playing around with the art form. Absolutely.
Right. It's a reaction to how I think comics had been up to that point. And then, as always, if we just keep going with an art form, humanity will be like, but what if we do it different?
There's always going to be the voice.
Let's try it. Right. Exactly. Let's try it. Let's see what happens.
It's like me now. I every script I write has like at least 7 monologues in it. I'm like, God damn it, we're getting back to monologues.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. You learn the rules to break the rules and all that fun stuff. So it's like you learn how to write comics in the way the form was sort of originally meant to be structured, and the way it was meant to deliver these kinds of stories. But then once you learn that, you then have the freedom, if you have the mental capacity to like think beyond whatever the rules are, whatever you've been taught, you then have the ability to do that once you understand what the limitations are. So you then use those limitations to stretch it, because you can't just ignore them, or it just doesn't, generally speaking, that tends to just not work. Right.
And so Crossover Division 15 is going to be the time. It's going to be the Time Machine by H.G. Wells. I purposefully skipped that because technically it's going to be a challenge for me to write, because in comics, time is space, right?
Right.
And I want to try to do some cool. I know they've been done. My guidepost here is: did you guys read Promethea by Alan Moore and J.H. Williams III?
Oh yeah, I did not.
There is a double-page spread, if you can look it up. And I'm like, I read it when it came out, and I'm like, holy shit. But there is a double-page spread that has the infinity symbol, right? It has the two Prometheas walking around it in multiple times. And because Alan Moore is a genius, and he was just freaking showing off, I think, you can actually,
yes, he was.
You can enter that conversation at any point, and it still makes sense. I'm like, okay, that's mind blown. You've taken the space and you've utilized it. So I'm really trying. I'm kind of using that as a guidepost to say, how can I use time travel to try to do something different? So I've kind of laid out the pages end to end. Do we want to kind of do a loop, or are we trying to do how can I do that? So I'm still letting it percolate, which is why I skipped it, because I know it's going to be really hard to do, because I'm going to have to do it, inside out, basically. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And J.H. Williams is freaking genius too. He's awesome. But this is just, it's brilliant, because you can, and he kind of has panels, kind of.
Yes.
Kind of not really.
Right.
So you know what this sort of reminds me of is, in terms of breaking the form and just making it very specific. Actually, Mr. Invisible. Mr.
Yes. Invisible. Will, have you ever? It's a French comic, but Magnetic Press put it out here in the States, and it's called Mr. Invincible.
Mr. Invincible. Okay.
Which is a weird title, because he's not invincible.
He's not.
And no one is in the comic, but they're all like 1 to 4 page short stories. But each story, and they start out very cute. Like, you're like, oh, that's clever. Oh, that's clever. But every story that goes on, everything plays with the form. And it's literally physical, visual form. And then he introduces characters that can do something unique with the form, and then another character that does something unique to the form, then puts them together in the same story and melds those two quirky. And then you have like 4 characters all together, and you're like, what are you doing? It is mind-blowing.
It really does kind of impress the hell out of you in a way that a lot of other stuff doesn't. It's a very simple kind of precept concept. But what he does with it, it's kind of fascinating. And it
Cool.
reminds me of playing with those sort of parameters in a way you're attempting to do so.
Well, I do love, Alan, Grant Morrison. I almost said Alan Grant. Grant Morrison on Animal Man, where he breaks that fourth wall. I see you. I see you as you're reading. You see what?
Right.
What?
Right.
So,
right.
And breaking the panel borders and stuff. That formalist experimentation is really cool, I think.
Right. Well, and I will say, don't get Mr. Invincible is available digitally. Like if you go to Amazon or Kindle or something like that, don't do the digital. It doesn't work if it's not a physical object. Half the shticks are like that, where it's like you have to. There's one story. I'll only reveal one thing the comic does. Only because I feel like this was, I had to read this story like 4 times to understand what I was even reading. And this actually, and once I figured it out, I was like, Jesus, that's genius. But there is someone who in every panel.
Don't give that one away. No, absolutely
don't give that one away.
Do not give that one to Will.
Right.
That's one he needs to discover on his own.
All right.
Okay, fine.
I'm ordering this.
Fair enough. But yes, do it. And you need the physical object because so many of the shticks are about you as the reader holding the physical object, turning that page, doing it has to be done that way. And some of it might take you a couple minutes or a read or two to truly catch on to what the heck is happening. Because the characters are just like, and you're like,
wait,
what?
What?
Right.
Nice. Okay, that's going on the list right now.
As research for number 15. Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
Also, I was a little negligent with the comments here, but Mary Puppo also said Frankenstein is my favorite. I'm going to be extra hyped to read that issue.
I'm going to go with Pupo or Puppo, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, Puppo, Pupo. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm going to go with Puppo every time.
Give us some phonetics there,
Mary. Yes, if you keep commenting and I'm doing it wrong, that is just a mea culpa all around. But unfortunately, I can't get a phonetic from that, so I'm just going to have to pick one. I have a 50-50 shot.
All right. Let's get into it, Dave.
Yeah, let's get into it. So let's go to the crossover division page. So I'm going to present my screen here.
Okay.
Here we go, everybody. All right. Crossover division 1 through 5. So this is for the 5th issue. Issue 1 through 4 has already been done and collected in trade paperback. I'm assuming I'm pretty sure they are all available depending on how you want to do it here in this campaign. So this is Hide and Seek, issue number 5, plainly, Mr. Jekyll and Hyde. This is where we are. The growing evil of Mr. Hyde stalks Hank and Hector in a transformed London. Can they end the crossover before Hyde ends them? Let's play the video. Let's see what we got here.
Solid animatic too.
God, yes.
MK Palmer is the bomb.
It's another name I gotta write down.
I know, right?
Hello again, and welcome to the Crossover Division number 4 Kickstarter campaign.
Wait a minute, this is the wrong video.
Oh, is it?
Oh no!
I uploaded the wrong.
Should we stop?
One, so, yeah, let's stop. Oh, that's dumb. I have to go fix that.
Yes, you do.
Oh man,
that's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Where were you guys 21 days ago.
Come to us
In
first,
happier-
and you will always be okay.
Yes, in happier news, we got the name correct. So, like
Yes.
Puppy, but with the no, y'all are 100% correct.
All right.
Awesome. Okay, one thing right today, but a video wrong.
Yeah, I'll
There
have
we
to fix
go.
that. Dang
But
it.
hey, you know what? I've been talking with a lot of creators though, and so few, whether it's other creators, whether it's other backers, I've also been talking with other backers. Very few of us watch the videos. So there is that. I think there's something with comics where I know Kickstarter thinks the video is very, very important. And I'll be honest, I've gone back to some campaigns I've backed or creators that I've been backing for a long, long time, and was kind of semi-shocked to realize they've never uploaded a video in like all this time. Every single campaign was just a picture, for the thing. And but I never try to play. I rarely try to play them because I don't need one for a comic that often.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, if you were doing like a tech gadget or something where it's like, no,
Yeah.
I want to see it in action. I want to see you use it. Right. I want to see you using it. Like certain things are really important to have a video for. And I think tech is one of the biggest things for crowdfunding, these days, or, business startups where it's like, this is the product we want to do or the type of thing we want to do. And here we're going to show you what it is and how we did it. And you don't have to read the whole page. But a comic, you're like, here's the log line, here's the cover. You're kind of if you want it or not, and that's kind of all you need.
Well, and what I did on the hardcover the collection was just have basically the animatic stuff with cutting me out. And I thought that's what I downloaded, but obviously not. So yay. Me are so smart.
That was your guy that did the animatics. That was MK who again?
It's MK Palmer. She does the book Meraki, which is actually on Kickstarter right now.
Oh, really?
Oh,
MK Palmer.
Yeah, Meraki.
How do you spell Meraki?
Meraki.
Meraki. Okay, cool.
Yep.
I'm gonna look up all that as soon as we're off here. Perfect.
Oh yeah, she's just she's a wizard with video. And
so I don't know if we're gonna get you any more backers, but you just got her another backer, probably. So
all right.
This is why we do these things, right?
We'll get both. We'll get both.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there we go.
And we should. You know what? I'm realizing too. Real quick, let me run over and take down. That Scan Me QR that was in the corner this whole time. That was our Kickstarter. I should have. We got to take that down so no one tries scanning it. And we will move on. But going back to the Kickstarter, so you can see here, guys, it is about 33, a little over 3,300. They just need to make it to 4,000. So it is well on its way. But
That's
8 days to go. I mean, it's a shoe in to fund pretty much, and 158 backers. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you see as your kind of like now that you're on issue 5? Has this been like sort of the 150-ish mark? Is that kind of what your core fan base seems to be now, or are you seeing that growth every single campaign still?
Well, we've seen growth. I think one of the reasons, and this is maybe a little slower than the fourth issue. With the fourth issue, we hit 332.
Ooh,
but
damn.
the fourth issue came out at the end of 2022, and then we did the hardcover in 2023, and we've had some challenges around getting the files for it's because it's an oversized hardcover. If there's a challenge, if there's a landmine to hit or something to trip on, we got it this time for the hardcover. We've hit them all, hopefully. Wow. I think. But I think because it's been so long since a single issue, we may not, because I have seen steady growth from number 1 to number 4, and then my goal for me is to hopefully still clear 300, because I feel like 300 is, well, I'd love to hit 1,000, but yeah.
By
but 300 seems like
20.
Yeah. 300 seems like it's a substantial number of backers, right?
Yeah.
It's
very much.
And these, that number of readers, that's a huge amount of support so that we can keep this going. So if I can keep it around 300 or hopefully grow it, and part of what we're trying to do this year is working with the team, and I haven't talked about the team yet, so can I mention Can we
Oh yeah,
dive into the team?
We'll get there,
Okay.
but go
Let
for
me-
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me scroll down to where your team thing is so we can see a little bit about them.
Page designed by Brant Fowler of Last Ember Press.
Ah, very, very nice. And
He's
I do
also
know
the letterer and designer of the book. So
very nice. And this is the main cover of Crossover Division number 5, everybody. And we will, let's see, about this issue. Maybe it's the about this issue. Nope, that's up there. Where are the people? Where are the people?
scroll down. I think we've got the creators down. If you'll scroll down on the left-hand side a little bit, there's some more links there.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah. There you go.
All right.
Creators down at the bottom.
Creators. Boom. Here we go. Okay, we know you. We know you.
Yep.
But we will go down to Pablo.
So Pablo is Argentinian, and he's been with us since before the first issue. So what I did is I worked with an editor who wasn't able to stay with the book. He was doing some other things, but he helped us get the first 8-page story done, as well as helped me with the pitch document. Because Crossover Division actually started out, I was going to pitch it to a publisher, and then we were going to go, from there.
Mm.
And then this little thing called COVID happened, and all the publishers shut down. And I was like, what the hell, man? Come on. So I said, okay, you know what? We have Kickstarter. We don't need a publisher. Kickstarter, we're going to do this on Kickstarter. So we went ahead. We had that 8-page story that became a backup story in issue 1. And we went ahead and did, the issue for number 1. And I think we were at about 170 backers, 160 something for number 1. Number 2, I think, was like 202 maybe. And then 3 was maybe 270. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look.
Every time. That's amazing.
So yeah, which really I love, because it's completely the opposite of
direct market stuff, right? Yeah. Kickstarter always is. You grow over time if you stick around, rather than your debut always being the only thing that's really gonna make
people buy.
Sort of record. Right.
So Pablo and he was doing the coloring for the first issue and the second issue, and but Pablo is not really a 4-issue a year kind of guy. He's great, don't get me wrong, but to actually get the number of issues out that I want to get and still be alive to see number 20, right? That's my goal. For issues 3 and 4, I brought on another artist. Her name's Alice Leclerc. She does one of the variant covers this time, and she did issues 3 and 4. And also, when I brought her on, Ryan Kroboth is a good friend from the Comics Launch program.
Yes, I know Ryan. Yeah.
And he has all the colors. He is a crayon wizard. Okay, his colors are just so awesome. And so what I did is, I talked to Pablo and said, hey, I really think that we can do this kind of as a TikTok, or 2 issues for you and 2 issues for Alice. But one thing that can really kind of tie that together, because their styles are different, but they're not so different. But Ryan's colors really tie things together. So Ryan is our colorist now going forward on all issues. And then Brant Fowler, who's also a writer, he's our letterer and designer, but he's also writes and is a publisher with Last Ember Press. They do The Last Ember and several other books out there. But he's been with us since the beginning. He's always been the letterer, and he designed the logo. He's our designer. The hardcover, once I've stood up and hopefully missed the last thing to trip on, once we get it in, the design of it is just beautiful. I mean, there's this feeling that's hard to describe, that like, okay, here's Crossover Division number 1, right?
Yeah.
I just happen to have this right here. Sorry. But there's something crazy about me holding something in my hand that lots of people worked on. Don't get me wrong, but it started out in my brain. right? Yeah. And now it's a physical object that exists
and
in the world.
You were the ringmaster. You coordinated all this stuff to happen. So there's that element too, where you're like, if you didn't care enough to make it happen, no one else was going to care enough to make it happen, right?
Exactly. And it's just so, it's like, it's almost like a drug. I want to keep doing this. I want to keep making new things, right?
It 100% is a drug.
Into the world.
You are correct.
And then we've got finally editor James Powell. James has also been on Kickstarter. He does kind of a Middle Ages horror, which has been Kickstarter's not necessarily
so horror for 50-year-olds or
exactly middle school ages maybe House of Fear is the book that he did, and it's a great book.
Yes,
but he's now editing full time, and as an editor, he does something that I love, because he doesn't say, "Oh, this doesn't work. I would do it this way." He says, "I don't think this works. What do you think would make it work?" And I'm like, "Damn it! Now I've got to fix it, right?"
Right.
So, that's a good editor. That's a damn
I know he's
good
a great editor. I feel like issue 2 was really strong, and that was James's first issue where he was the editor. And then 3, don't get me wrong, 3 and 4 are good, 5's good, 6 is good, 7's good. I think with 8 we may have turned a corner, or sorry, with 7 I think we turned a little bit of a corner, and it's working better, more like I kind of envision it, because one of the things that I really want to do, I just don't want to pick a random book and say, "Hey, we're going to go crossover with Batman today," or whatever.
Right.
Because also I don't want to get sued by DC. So whatever.
Right.
Most importantly,
but to act, but to take a look at the themes, of the work, what was that? What was the original author trying to do, and then try to plug in and work with those so that I'm bringing those to light with what Hank and Hector are kind of experiencing, so that we're really working. And I think with 7, don't get me wrong, we 5 and 6 are good, but I think with 7 and the Call of Cthulhu, we're digging more into it, and it's I think we may have leveled up a little bit on that one, honestly. And I'm Pablo's turning in pages now, and I'm like, cool. It's like, and getting an email that says, "Hey, I turned your crappy words into this." It's like Christmas. It's like, holy crap, awesome. You're me am writer. Thanks for doing that.
I mean, even just our Kickstarter was bringing back a comic that was already done, so it was like a classic comic, and bringing it back into print. But we had to get new covers made. I needed new colors on some of the OG black and white art to make like a new original cover and things like that. And even just seeing new colors or a new artist rendition of something that I'm in love with as a fan, like that alone gave me that dopamine rush, and just that like, what is this? This is incredible. I can't even imagine something that I wrote myself getting that treatment is on yet at least another step, if not a couple steps. So yeah.
I mean, it really is one of the great things that I think a comics writer does. And there are a lot of people that are so much better at this than I am. I look at like Pat Shand he's like a ringmat. I think he's Stan Lee reincarnated. I think maybe. I don't know.
Kickstarter Stan Lee. Okay, we can go with that.
Stan Lee, yeah. Charlie Stickney. I mean, there's a lot of really, and I think that what, at least my kind of trying to peel apart a little bit of the DNA of what they're doing there is, they're really great at surrounding themselves with creators that just continually add to what they're trying to do. And when you get right down to it, I feel like my team makes me look better than I am, right? And that's
right.
that's cool too, right?
Right.
I mean, in fairness, that's probably what you should want, if creators were thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
Well, though, to another degree, it is sort of almost like a payoff to some, because you are the ringmaster of your own work at the very least. And so to some degree, you're choosing who to reach out to, you're choosing who to give that chance to, who to be like, I think you're the one, let's try this, let's do this. And when it comes out looking amazing and making you look that good in terms of your writing, that you still get a kernel of some credit for that, because you're putting that team together. And
for sure,
I think that's the and I'm sure, or I don't know how many people you tried or reached out to and like things didn't work out with, but that also happens as well. But that's the stuff people don't see, right? We only see the end result of that. And so we're like, this is genius. This is incredible. Look at this hybrid of writing and art and whatnot. And you're like, yeah, it took years.
Yeah.
So,
I'm almost dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one really cool thing happened during the hardcover. So the hardcover collects 1 through 4 plus a bonus 8-page story.
Right.
And so I kind of feel like, at least in my mind, the artists of Crossover Division are Pablo and Alice, right?
Yeah.
So Pablo had an 8-page story, so I gave an 8-page story to Alice for the hardcover, which would be exclusive to the hardcover.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I love what she did with issues 3 and 4, but on that 8-page story, and I've told her this because I gush all the time. I'm like, you guys are awesome, whatever. I'm sure they're sick of hearing it, but we, the rest of the team, I really think we saw her level up just in that 8-page story. And then Ryan threw his colors on it, because there's one page in that story. I think it's on the page if you go back and look at the hardcover campaign, but if you want to. But Hank and Hector get separated. Hector actually knows what the work is, but he screwed up a few minutes before and got it wrong.
Right.
But now he's sure. And Hank is like, no, and these guys, they separate him and they take Hector away to kill him.
Right.
And Hector's like, hey, no, I got this. I know what this is. You just go do this. I'm not going to ruin the story for you.
Right.
So Hank is, they shuffle him off. He's walking away. He's looking down and he hears a gunshot. Right. Well, and that's part of the story. So Hector's not dead. Okay, it's all right. But he doesn't know that. So you get this reaction shot, and it's so, he's like, they just killed him. He's just, almost, and you can see it in his face, because Alice, she's so great with the character acting in the faces. And then he takes off running, and you can just see the desperation in his face, because he's got to, he's like, please no, I've got to fix this, make sure. It turns out all right.
Yeah,
it's Les Miserables. It's Les Miserables. So it turns out
don't give away all the secrets.
It turns out as all right as Les Miserables can turn out, I guess. But so it's really, it's awesome to see something like that, where someone's doing great work, but then boom, it becomes even better, and it's just, I love that. I mean, I love working as part of a team, because that's really what we're doing. We're all pulling in the same direction to get this thing.
The sum ends up being greater than the parts. I mean, that is one of those cases when it's so evident, and you have creators who just rise to the challenge, or they are challenged and, end up sort of just surprising themselves. So, yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really cool.
And is the plan to switch between Pablo and Alice going forward?
Yep. So 5 is Pablo, 6 is Alice, 7's Pablo, 8's Alice.
Cool.
Oh no! Oh, so one each, not just 2 each. Okay.
Yeah, and then we've talked among Pablo and Alice and I about 9 through 20. 20 is going to be a double-sized issue, so they're both going to be doing that one. It's going to be the final issue. But since I've already got it mapped out, I'm like, well, what do you guys want to draw?
Right.
We can schedule this out so that you can, if you like, crap. If you like the Time Machine, you can do that one. God, I've
Right.
still got to finish that. If you like
Right.
Frankenstein, you can do that one, or So
Right.
we're still talking about that, but for now, the next 4, those have been planned out, and we've scheduled it so that the hope is that we can get 4 done this year. 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 is so we have So we have Hank and Hector. We also have Betsy. Betsy is an agent, a former agent of Crossover Division, who everybody thinks is insane, and everybody thinks she's going around killing Crossover Division agents, causing these crossovers and killing Crossover Division agents. There's a lot more going on there, and we start to get a hint of that in issue 8.
Yep.
And the crossover there is with A Scandal in Bohemia, Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Okay.
That's where Irene Adler is introduced, and she's the only person, not just woman, but only person to ever get one over on Sherlock. And Betsy's kind of not necessarily an analog, but I wanted to play with that a little bit
for our main characters. That she's a little bit of a similar dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. So it's and I still. James has given me lots of notes on that. I haven't read them yet. I need to get it edited and whipped into shape. But Alice is just starting on 6, so I still have some time. Maybe.
Right.
I hope.
Right. All right. Well, and also, folks, just so everyone knows, like, this is something. You're the second campaign recently that has this One Tree Planted going green and whatnot in partnership with this. This is something I need to look into as well, because I hadn't even thought about this. But
I completely and totally stole it from Oneshi Press.
Okay.
No, those are the other people. So there you go.
Sense.
So,
that makes sense.
JL and Lindsay. It's really easy. You can just go out to the One Tree Planted and make your donation and just say, hey, this is for my campaign, and they'll put it in your name and give you a certificate. So it's really simple. Beautiful. And I love the fact that they figured it out and I just get to coast on it. So thanks JL and Lindsay.
I'm gonna have to go back and talk to them and be like, so how do you send this on? And get all the details, because that's very cool. I feel like, especially if we're all printing books and things like that, we're living in that era where anything that can be done, if we're gonna waste more trees, make more paper, we should do what we can.
I have stacks of the Gemini mailers that I get sent to me, because I back a lot of campaigns, because I try to give back to the community as much as I can.
Oh yes, you hold on to them. Oh my gosh,
I hold on to them, and then I send them out again.
Son of a gun. I need to do that too. It's just this was my first one, so it's like I hadn't thought about it. But yes,
Kevin.
Okay, cool.
Kevin Joseph. We back each other's books all the time.
Of course.
And I sent him, I think it was Crossover Division number 4 in a mailer.
In one of his?
In one of mine. And then he turned around and he had my mailer, and he wrote a big long, I come home to you, my master. He wrote this long little thing on it, which was just awesome.
Of course.
I'm returning back to you. I'm like, Kevin, you're awesome.
And are you guys going to just try to reuse the same Gemini mailer for until both of your series are over? That should be like the goal, right?
I'm going to have to do that. Yeah. Well, actually, so Kevin and I have, we've actually written a crossover between Crossover Division and Tart.
Ooh, perfect.
We've had it edited. The artist has been busy, but we just found out earlier this week that she's ready to start.
Okay.
So, and we're both kind of proud of this story. It's a lot of fun. And
cool. Is Tart going to be the literary work that's crossing over into the Crossover Division?
No, we didn't want to make Tart, somehow less, because a crossover. Okay. So
gotcha.
There is another work that they're crossing over into, which is kind of weird and strange, but we have a lot of fun. Hector has a crush on her, and I actually referenced that in number 5 or 6 or somewhere.
Okay.
Where
you're setting it up, proper.
Yeah. You just want to see that Tart lady again, and it's like, shut up.
Yeah.
Very cool. That is very good. And yes, Mary comes back in. I love the idea of recycling Gemini mailers in the One Tree Planet. It's such a cool idea. It is such a cool idea. I had thought about it briefly, like when I saw that with Aneshi Press, I was like, oh yeah. And now when I've seen it here, I'm like, what am I doing? I need to get in on this. Like, I don't understand why I'm not looking into it. So yeah, we should all be pushing that to fellow creators. I'm gonna on social media when they come on the show, maybe behind the scenes, I'm gonna be like, by the way, everyone.
By the way, you could do this. Yeah.
So real quick there, Will. What other public domain IP have you had in the mix? Things that maybe haven't made it to your pad, or things that are sort of dream projects?
Oh, so like the rejects.
Yeah. Or just the ones that you haven't gotten around to that may be there somewhere. You know,
well, I really
laid out.
Yeah, well, there's one. Did I decide? I've got a text file that I keep that has them all listed because I'm like, well, did I do that one already? I don't remember. Which is great because I don't know if you guys have probably read Stephen King's On Writing, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, a long time ago, but
So great. But one of the things that he says is, write it, put it in a drawer for 6 months, right?
Mm.
So one of the great things about me, having this done, because I wrote number 5 like 2 years ago.
No.
So I can come back to it with some, a different set of eyeballs, and like what was I thinking? Bad past Will, bad past Will,
Yeah.
So it's by getting ultimately, if I can keep on my schedule, because I try to write 4 pages of script a week, and that's draft pages, right? I just get 4 pages done in the draft, and it's not a huge goal, but I use my mailing list as kind of an accountability partner. And I don't like to go to my mailing list and say, no, I was a lazy freaking slug this week. I didn't get any writing done.
Right.
It's Monday afternoon and I've got 4 hours until.
I think you might have written that to the mailing list like maybe once in all the time that I've been on the mailing list. But it's like, it's rare. It's rare.
Yeah. So, but I actually did some totaling because I try to keep a log. I love Excel. I'm a Excel fanboy, but I keep a log in Excel, and I totaled up since I started keeping track of this since like 2019. I think it's 2019 or 2018, 2019, and I totaled it up on this, the different sheets of the spreadsheet, and just 4 pages a week, I've written over 1,000 pages.
Crazy.
And I'm like, 4 pages a week is 3, 4 hours of writing a week, right? It's not It's not insane. It's not sitting down and beating your head against a keyboard for 8, 10, 12 hours.
Yeah,
it's maybe 4 hours of work, and that's something that's doable. Not if I can do it, and I like to tell if I can do this, anybody can do this because I did it. Right? It's not obviously it's not rocket science.
Right.
And to follow up to that. In that back catalog, that cache, are these 2 properties featured? Steamboat Willie and the picture of Dorian Gray.
No on Steamboat Willie. I had not considered a picture of Dorian Gray.
And I only say that because I imagine in my mind that's the episode where your 2 artists, one gets to handle the imagery in the mirror, and the other gets to handle.
That's a great idea. You know what? I'm gonna
write it down.
That might make it into a montage sequence in 20. Right. That's a good idea.
I'll take it.
Maybe you'll need another 8-pager for the next trade paperback or something.
There you go.
Like a little side thing.
And just make me a character in the back with a glass of wine watching some.
Gotcha. There you go. Let's see. I can't tell you what the crossover with 20 is.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason I can't tell you that is because it involves something that is central to the series as a whole.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Well, one of the things that's really interesting is, of course, we, the readers at least, do not know why these are happening, right?
Yeah.
That has not been
exactly
revealed. And so, and I have no idea if the agency has any theories on why it's happening. They have not really said yet in the series. So this seems to be like the great mystery of the series is what this even is. Like, we know what it does. We don't know what it is, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And that's hopefully, if I do it right, that's going to be a mystery that gradually gets revealed and then propels us into the last half of the series, essentially.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. So it's and I think I've said this a lot. One of the probably biggest influences on Crossover Division is Planetary by Warren Ellis and John Cassidy.
Oh, I can see that. Okay.
It is the things that, and well, let me back up a little bit. I wrote my doctoral dissertation on Warren Ellis.
Oh, wow.
Really?
So, and they gave me a degree for it. Suckers.
Of course.
But so his work is very important, has been very important to me.
Yes.
Now, we found out lately that he's not necessarily as wonderful a person as I hoped he was.
I know,
not as wonderful. So, well, in H.P. Lovecraft fashion, not as good a person as they are a writer, right? You know, but
exactly,
if you like that kind of writing, it's like it was really good writing of those, and there was a lot there. I mean, it broke my heart too, because like Transmetropolitan, Planetary, so much of what he did was, I always thought of him as you know, Grant Morrison is one of those writers where, to me, Grant Morrison has all the crazy ideas that are even more crazy and ludicrous than Warren Ellis, but they kind of rarely come together. Like, you sort of have to just let them be in their crazy zone, and then you need like a Cliff Note guidebook to even follow what the frick is in every panel. And Warren Ellis is all of that, but then with a cogent character and story arc that actually like emotionally is and thematically is resonant and comes together. And I'm like, that always made me much happier as a reader and much more like, so I admired that. But then, not as great a human being as we thought, unfortunately.
Well, and Kevin Joseph and I were like, no, it sucks. I said, no, it sucks for me. And he's like, no, I started writing because of Joss Whedon. I said, okay, it sucks for both of us, right?
So, never read the biographies of your heroes. That's what.
Yes. That's
well, you know, again, I know. Never meet your heroes, but especially
you can meet them. Like, never read the bio.
But if it's breaking headlines in your lifetime, you kind of have to pay attention to it. You don't get the option anymore.
So you know,
ignore it.
But Planetary was
can't ignore it. No, I'll fight you on that.
You can't. You can't really ignore it, unfortunately. But Planetary was really, I don't know, maybe it was this like watershed moment. But what he's doing is really similar to kind of what I'm doing. You know, is taking a look at some of these older properties, and I don't have to file the serial numbers off because the serial numbers have worn off, right? So. You know, he would file a serial numbers
that needs to be a little tagline somewhere. Actually, that's good. That's good.
So, you know, he would try to scrape. I think he in a quote he said, "Scrape away all the dog shit and see what it was about." You know, these ideas and these characters and these things that fired the imagination when they first debuted.
Right.
And for me, I guess I'm doing a little bit of archaeology myself and, you know, looking at these works and maybe trying to reframe them for, you know, now, you know, and how we look at things. And maybe I'm successful, maybe I'm not, but for me, Planetary is where it's actually really, I'm going to get really dark here. Okay.
Okay.
Welcome to the party.
So, Crossover Division is not a dark book. I try to keep it fairly light. There's going to be some heavy things happen, but it's you know, the guys fist bump a lot. You know, it's so. I read, what was it, issue 3, 4, 5? I can't remember what it was of Planetary, where they create a fictional universe, they send astronauts there, and then something bad comes back and kills lots of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That kind of got me thinking, well, it kind of planted the seed for crossover division. What if
Right, yeah.
stories would, cross over? And I remember being out on a run, because I used to run. I'm a lazy slug now, but
Welcome to the party.
and the weather's been bad too, so I have an excuse.
Right.
But I remember this image in my head as I was running, going, "Oh wow!" But imagine K from Men in Black,
Mm-hmm.
blood all over his suit, like sitting down and just looking tired and exhausted, and saying, "A man can only gut Black Beauty so many times."
Oh.
It's like, that is dark, isn't it? That is dark. That is so dark.
It's weirdly specific though, right?
I love it. That's something I would actually write. That's
Right.
fantastic.
And so that was where it started. I'm like, well, God, that's not me. Maybe it is. I don't know, but that's not where I wanted to take it. So it,
Okay.
from that kernel came crossover division, and it was, but it was just that, dead tired. I've been doing this job. I'm sick of it. And that job
Yeah.
was, So that's not the book, though, people. Please, it's not that dark. I promise.
I think even if it was, though, I mean, the book is much more lighthearted than that. Yeah, don't get him wrong.
Maybe there's a dark chapter. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Or 2 or 3, and ending. Like, I'm sure it'll end mostly happy, but you got to have that drama. You got to have the stakes and whatnot, and that requires some seriousness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in our first issue, Hank is. So this kind of involves, and I don't necessarily know if I want to reveal this, but what crossover division is really about. Okay. I actually get into, if you read the first page of the first issue, I give it away right there.
Oh.
Okay. I tell you exactly what it's about. And there are some things that you can draw from that. Maybe you can't draw from it, but when it's done, we can talk about it.
Okay.
But Hank is. I can't really. I'm sorry, I can't get in. Hank is depressed.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
Yeah,
he's not not in a great place.
Yeah, he's got his demon.
And
yes,
and he runs across this crossover now. Whether that's an accident or whether it's whatever will be revealed later on.
Right.
But he meets Hector, whose partner is Daniel, and Daniel is kind of the English guy versus Hector's the librarian. And in the first issue, Daniel dies pretty horrifically, I think. But Hank is then brought into the organization, and then they go on. And what I really try to do is, the first 4 issues are kind of form an arc where they're newbie agents. They're just trying to get by, right? In the next arc, they've kind of proven themselves. They're kind of like the best. And then in the next 3 arcs, shit happens that I can't talk about, but we'll get there.
Right. Right. All right. Well, it's interesting because I have my suspicions of what you've just said, so I won't say too much about it, but just the crossovers are always, there are these dreamers, right, that are asleep. And the crossover division, what they do is they have to recite the final line or final couple of lines, or we'll see where it goes from here. It seems to be growing what they need to do, and recite the final lines of whatever the literary work is that's crossing over to the sleeping dreamer, and that wakes them up. And then the crossover ends. So that is the setup. And believe me, this is revealed very quickly in the first issue. So this is not a mind-blowing revelation. It's not something where I gave away anything you're not going to get in the first few pages. But yeah, the dreamers, why are they dreaming, and why are they dreaming of these literary works? What are these agents? I don't have anything concrete, but there was always something about that setup where, as I was reading it, I was very much considering like what that was meant to represent, right? Or what that was meant to really be. And what you just said there, I'm like, okay, all
Yeah.
right, that kind of clocks a little bit. I don't have a lot of fine details on that, so there's still much to be, discovered as I continue reading. But especially with the agency, I need to find out more about that. But that, I think that does kind of clock. I'll say no
Awesome.
more on that.
And you can see in the pages that Ryan's colored there, Hank and Hector encountered Betsy, and she has basically not necessarily a kill order, but they want to capture her, right? And Hank is getting questioned here. It's like, hey, you encountered her and you're still alive, and you're just an idiot newbie agent. What's going on? And Hank thinks he knows. And in this kind of back and forth, Hank thinks he knows something. He says what he thinks he knows. This guy's like, this guy's an idiot. and that's the end. That's the end of the thing. And Hank's like, what the hell just happened? He's like, I don't know what the hell's going on. So this is one of the higher ups at Crossover Division, and he's not necessarily that nice a guy. We find out more about him. He shows up again in number 8.
He looks uptight, if nothing else, but probably he's even worse than that. Yes.
Yeah.
And I will say, you were saying how Pablo was not a 4-issue a year kind of guy, and you can look at a page like this and be like, yeah, that took time. that took a lot of time. But that's a beautiful page right there.
Yeah, and Ryan has just knocked it out coloring it. I mean,
he has. It is intimidating when there's this much detail. Yeah,
it's so much detail.
Yeah. To have to color that and break down like where the light is and where the different shades are, and I mean that that is a that is a pain.
He might have griped at me a little bit about that page a few times. I'm like, sorry, man,
you've heard about
Pablo. It. Yeah. and this, I went back and reread, Jekyll and Hyde for this, and I was shocked at how really evil Hyde is in the book.
Yeah.
He is that, not even really the id. He's the evil part of Jekyll that's just given form, right? And
it's pure.
There's
the thoughts and the things you might want to do that you would never give full credence to, like they're passing in your head. And like in your darkest moments or greatest moments of anger or jealousy or rage or whatever, like those thoughts might be there, but you never give in. And then Hyde is like, given to it all, given to everything. Go with the worst possible parts of your being. Which you're right, that's not quite the same as id, is it? It's like it's the worst parts, not just the unchained parts. Yeah.
And there's a physicality to this issue and a physicality to Hyde that I wanted to bring out. So there's Hank and Hector pay a physical price by the end of this one. Guess what? They end the crossover at the end of it. Spoilers, I hope I don't ruin it for you. But it does cost them, from a physical standpoint, because Hyde is he is evil. I mean,
it's pure.
And it was fun to kind of write someone so just like, I'm gonna, it's beyond psychopath almost. It's just pulling the wings off of flies because why not, right? I mean, but it's hopefully I think I've been true, I think, to the spirit of it. And of course, we'll have the essay where we talk about it, in the book as well. So
very cool. I mean, I think that's a selling point right there. Just that pitch for this issue and like how intense it's going to get. So that is very, very cool. All right, and then we've got some variant covers. Here is Alice's variant cover. Yep, the other artist we were talking about. Yep.
Yeah, and that's a rough sketch. In an update, the last update, I actually revealed the final colors and actually her inks for that. So, and hey, cover reveal. There it is.
There we go. Ooh,
so you can see how she finished it off.
Yeah,
she's amazing. And I love that schism that she put there.
Yes. That is,
And
the silhouettes and then how she paints with it. I mean, yeah, that's very cool.
And I gave her that idea. No, I didn't.
That's good, but still, she knocked it out of the park, right? But see, again, Will, the ringmaster, right? That is why you still get some credit on this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things, I feel like from a Kickstarter standpoint, variant covers help the overall campaign, because it gives people options, and some people want all the covers, some people just want some of the covers. Brian's cover is awesome too.
Yes. I've got all of his Sunmaker comic that he fully drew and whatnot. So yeah. I'm a fairly big fan of his own art, and it's very cool.
And then we have that one's good. That's Steve. So Steve Bryant did that one for
Okay.
From Evie and the Helsings and Athena Voltaire. Steve's an amazing artist. Yeah.
Yes.
And then Matta Sorcier did almost
Very
like
cool.
an old paperback cover.
Yeah.
We chatted with Brant, and I said, Brant, Matta wants to do her own kind of trade dress treatment for this to make it look a certain way. First off, are you okay with it? And he's like, sure, no problem. And then she turned this in, and I thought, this looks like an old cover. It's really, really cool. And that's one of the great things that I love, besides the variant covers helping the Kickstarter itself. It gives me a chance to work with other artists. I mean, I can, and this is typically what I tell them. Hey, would you like to draw a cover for Crossover Division number 8? We're crossing over with Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
Right.
Okay. They say yes. And I say, okay, what do you want to do?
Right.
And then they do what they want to do for the most part. But it's so much fun.
And you give the idea, like with Alice, did you just have that idea that you really wanted someone to do that? Or did she not have any ideas and she's like, sure, what do you want? And then you gave that idea.
No, I was joking. I didn't tell her anything. She came up with that all on her own.
Oh, gotcha. I was going to say, I was like, all right.
I had no part
You'd be like, I really want one cover that's this,
Yeah. No. And that's one of the really great things is that I get to see Crossover Division through the eyes of another artist,
right?
Which is really, really cool. And it's kind of invigorating because, Alice, she pulled out that whole schism, between the, Jekyll and Hyde and just did it wonderfully. And then Matta came in with this, pulpish, book cover. And I'm like, that's cool too, and then you get Steve's cover, which is, has a more modern flair to it, and and then Ryan's, which is this cartoony thing.
This has a very Buffy or Angel kind of Whedon-verse, sort of feel to it, And then I do like the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because that is such the classic. That is exactly what they call those old serials and whatnot. Yeah. So
and that's I hope, and I think that they do. I think the backers really like getting to choose between different covers. So I hope they do, because I really enjoy getting to work with all these other artists. And in fact, I've got I've got 2 artists already working. One artist has completed the cover to number 7 already. Another one is working on hers, and I've got another artist that's agreed to do number 8, who she's awesome, and I'm not going to spoil that one yet. So
okay. But much to look forward to. This is cool.
Yes, a whole lot to look forward to.
And then, guys, we've got the Indie Comic Bundle for $1, so that's 5 digital copies that you get just for throwing a buck at the campaign. Get another backer count. He wants to make it past 300 again, so come on. If you can't really afford anything in terms of like the comic itself, like throw in that buck, get his backer count up there. That helps the algorithm on Kickstarter as well.
Absolutely,
so that's very important. Yep. Then basic digital, $5, you get the comic digitally. $8, you get it the deluxe digital for $8, which includes credit in issue number 5 PDF on top of the deluxe digital PDF. So what is the deluxe digital? I guess that is the question. What's included in the deluxe?
So you have the issue, but then we
Mhm.
also throw in the script, and the script is actually redacted in a couple of places because there are some things I don't want to reveal that
Right,
the
right,
team already
right.
knows, right? Yeah.
Of course.
And then we have typically the inks and just the colors so that you can
Cool.
see the whole process from there. So you
Process,
get
yeah.
script all the way to the colors, and then of course you have the finished book at the beginning of it.
Right. All right.
Because
Cool.
I love to show off, the art that Alice does or show off the art that
Right.
Pablo does
Right.
because
Yeah.
it's great.
It blows your mind. You have to assume it's going to blow a few other people's minds, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And then deluxe
And if
digital
you
catch up if you want. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
and if you want to read my, typing script, you
Yes.
can read the script too.
Which, I think if anyone's a writer, if anyone's a wannabe writer or what have you, like, I think that is, a very cool thing for people. They always want to see, like, how does someone else do this? And with comics, especially, there really is no format for,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
agreed upon by writers. So it's such a anything goes that it's like, you always want to see how any given writer is doing it. And especially when the art is good and you're like, okay, how did you communicate this? What did you send them and how did you get these pages back? So,
Well, it's really interesting because Pablo doesn't speak English natively.
okay. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
I did wonder
so
about that. Yeah.
so when I'm doing a script and I know that Pablo's going to be drawing it, I'm really terse and I try not to use any idioms or anything. I just
Yep.
try to make it as straightforward and plain as possible. Now,
Mhm.
Alice is French, but she does speak English, so we get a little more back and forth when we're dealing
Right.
with things. She feels, and Pablo should feel the same way too. But she's like, she feels free to call me out on my crap. Like, what the hell did you mean by this? I'm like,
Right.
oops, sorry, that's my bad. Here's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah, there we
Right.
go. And whereas Pablo is getting the script translated, so
Right.
we still have a little bit of back and forth, but not
Right.
necessarily as much if he could speak English. So
Yeah.
Right. Of course.
Mhm.
Yeah. We've talked to Stephen Prince on Fabio Alves with about
Yep.
that as well, because it's going through Google Translate, whatever
Yeah.
he sends him.
Yep.
So he's like,
Yeah.
it's got to be to the point and as simple and straightforward as
As
possible,
possible.
because
Yep.
or Google Translate is going to spit out some weird shit and I'm going to get stuff on
And
that
you're gonna see
page.
it
Right, you're gonna
Well-
see stuff where you're like, why did he draw them wearing that? Like, I'm like, where did that come from? And it's because of whatever. Steven's story is hysterical though, because he went I think 2 whole issues before realizing Fabio didn't speak English, and there was just all these moments where he was like, interesting, I guess we'll run with it, but I don't know where that came from. Like, why did he draw this thing in the background? Why is there a frog there? I don't get it, but okay, I guess. And then he started to actually call Fabio out on certain things, like, no, man, really, I don't know why you keep adding shit. And Fabio was like, dude, I don't speak English. And he was like, oh no.
So Kevin Joseph has a great story about Ludo and him. Ludo's French as well, and Kevin's in Florida. Kevin's Florida man. Sorry, Kevin, I'm just joking with you.
No, he 100% is.
Yeah. For one of the issues, they were dealing with Nazis in the issue, because Nazis make a great villain and you should always punch Nazis, people.
That's right. Nice little call back there.
Yeah. He wrote something in there that, and Ludo didn't quite understand what he wrote about the Nazis because he wasn't going to have, the toxic fruit wear actual Nazi symbol. So he said, make it, flipping the bird. Yeah, I think it was make it, fingers flipping the bird. That looks
gosh.
Nazi symbol-ish, right? And Ludo's like, the bird. So he actually, Ludo drew
the bird upside down.
No, he drew doves. And it's beautiful. It makes so much sense, doves symbolizing peace versus, the actual Nazi symbol.
Right.
And Kevin was like, dude, that is so much better than what I wrote, and it was all because it was not translated properly. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So happy accidents all around
Yes.
sometimes with those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And Kevin is brilliant too. I just
Yes.
it was when we do the deluxe edition of the Tart crossover division crossover. I would write 4 pages. He would write 4 pages, and when you get to look at that script, you're going to say, "Oh, okay, Will wrote these 4 pages. Okay, Kevin wrote those 4 pages," because our approach is
so different,
completely different, and the format is completely different.
Yeah,
and I would love to just read his pages, going like, "Oh shit, that's cool. I wish I'd have thought of that.
Right.
I'm going to steal that, and I'm back on this page."
Right. Very, very cool. All right. And then we've got main cover, so digital ketchup for $18, or get the print copy, main cover, $18. And is this, are you a shipping included or a shipping later for that $18?
I do add $4 for shipping. And I do it,
but it'll be right there.
Yeah. It'll be right there. Yeah.
Cool. And then we got pick 2 covers of any of them. That's cool. I like that. Pick 3 covers. And are the covers individually like add-ons as well if you wanted to do them a la carte?
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect. Print.
I try to make it I try to make it so that I cover most of the stuff with the reward tiers, but
yeah,
you can't make infinite reward tiers, or if you did, it would be crazy. So yeah.
Yep. And again, now that I've done it, I'm like, oh yeah, Jesus, no. It's like Kickstarter, like it gives you options, but you are painstakingly putting it together, each piece over and over and over. I'm like, wow, they won't even let you copy. Like, this is bad. Yeah, that is something they really need to fix.
Kickstarter is like perfectly built for us to serialize comics. I mean, it just works so well to serialize comics. If they would just please let us freaking copy our rewards over from the last campaign, or just duplicate this campaign and then add the stuff and change out your text and be done, it would literally save me days of work.
So much,
And
it's so funny because I just learned that because we didn't fund, and I immediately asked someone, and I knew what the answer was going to be. But I was like, I just need to repeat this campaign, then add a few things. Can I just make a duplicate of this campaign? And they were like, yeah, no, it sucks. They were like, it effing sucks. But this is how it works. And I was like, of course, that's how it works. All right, print catch-up, guys. All the standard covers.
Oh yeah.
That you get for $71 of all the previous issues and the latest. All 5 of the latest. All together.
That's a good tier.
It is.
Yep.
And then, is this the Virgin variants? And only 10 of them. So get them all.
Yep.
All 5 covers plus a crossover division headquarters visitors pass.
Yep.
And all right. Yeah. Very cool.
Good stuff.
So, and for those of you not into comic parlance, Virgin covers are just no text. So, or no title text. So like Mata's, it was part of the art. So it's there. But,
exactly.
but you're just getting the art. Yeah. And then original black and white commission from Pablo.
Yep.
That is super cool. Oh, I love original art tiers. I'm a sucker for them. I can't afford that many, but I am a sucker for them. And then we've got limited. So 3, join up, be a crossover agent. Want to be a part of the story? Have your likeness used for a crossover division agent. There you go. So have your likeness be used as an agent in the comics. Now,
plus you get
I'm assuming this is a future issue.
Oh, it's an
actual badge. Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And you'll be in this issue too. I mean,
okay.
It would be typically we have multiple agents somewhere in the issue. They're either back at the base or something. So we would just redraw one of the agents that's already been drawn.
Okay. Gotcha. Very cool. And then we got be a dreamer. One of the we were just talking about. They are dreamers. That's what causes the crossover. So you can have your likeness drawn for one of them. Very cool. And for the elite variant collectors, get all 18 regular covers and all 18 Virgin variant covers.
That's just impressive.
46 comics. Good Lord. I don't even want to know what that costs to ship to anyone. Yeah.
That is a brick. I I try to keep the shipping charges just a default $4. So
Okay.
I eat
You eat a little cost in there.
Wow.
I ate some shipping on that one, yeah.
Oh,
But
Very
if they're gonna
nice.
back
Very
it,
nice.
I'm okay with
that's
that,
right.
you know.
Worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and there are only limited two. That's all he's got left to give everyone everything, kind of a thing. So, all right. And then, of course, add-ons, a few things that we haven't actually seen.
Yeah.
Diary of, was this a previous
Night.
comic that you did? Diary of Night?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I did. This was a
Ah.
4-issue series published by Bloodfire Studios in the direct market several years ago.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
kickstarted. Actually, we kickstarted, or we tried to kickstart the collected edition, and for my first Kickstarter, and we actually failed. I did not know what I did not know.
Yeah.
Of course.
You
Yeah.
you guys were so much more successful than I was. I think I only had like 70 backers, 80 back.
Right.
It was,
Right.
and then I went.
And
if
for a
only someone-
hardcover collection, which
Yeah.
is, you need a lot
Yeah.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was totally clueless. And I went, if only there was someone that could show me this thing, cue Celestial Orchestra, and
Right.
and Light, Tyler James,
Right.
Right.
Joined Comics Launch at that point,
Yes.
and then the came back and did it again. Had to recreate everything, which you're
Mhm.
finding out about. And I got that funded, so that was my first funding, and then we did a quick Make 100, I think, not too long after that, and then we started Crossover Division in 2020 with
Okay.
the issue 1, and we've been doing Crossover Division ever since. But this was published in the direct market and threw in some extras. Gene Gonzalez is the artist on it, and he's such a great visual storyteller. It was great.
Yeah.
And then I pulled in. I was lucky. I didn't realize how lucky I was at the time. But when we did this, I was able to get a letterer. His name's Russ Wooten. He's worked on
Yeah.
some books that you probably haven't heard of, like Walking Dead or Monstress, or
Right.
some of those
Yeah.
books that nobody hears about. He's done the lettering for those. I was like, wow, okay, cool. And he designed our logo, and I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's a vampire book, but it's a different kind of take on vampires. And
Okay. It looks, the cover image and the title look so familiar. I am pretty sure I got a digital version of this. I think I backed it at a digital version way back in the day. I'll have to go check. I don't think I've ever read it though, as one often does. You collect too many of these things on Kickstarter, and like it's just in your a hard drive somewhere, and you're like, one day I'm gonna be retired, and I'm gonna have.
I'm just gonna read all of this stuff.
Read all
exactly, but I'm
absolutely.
pretty sure I have this somewhere.
Yeah, I share it with the Comics Launch program. So if somebody wants to use it as an indie bundle tier or something, they have free range to use it.
Very cool. All right, and then the creative team. So, any last words on the campaign itself, Will, of anything we haven't covered that you want us to know about?
I don't know that I can think of anything. I mean, it really is a labor of love, like all comics are. I mean,
yes,
the fact that, and you guys know this, there are so many ways in which a comic can never get made.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that any comic makes it is, a kick in the, probability and reality, because we just defied all of the odds and made something.
Right.
So
it's and much to the point
we do
of
this
even
because
something.
We love this.
Right. Well, and even to the point of something going through the direct market, a comic can get made and never really find much of an audience, right? It's like it just doesn't actually move units or copies. And so whether it's on Kickstarter, like even just getting the minimum funding, that is huge, and everyone's going to thank you through the roof. But it is also about the readership, and it's about people discovering the comic, enjoying it, spreading the word. Like that's how all these things work.
It's so cliche, but that value added of building a community kind of just, even if you don't make, the minimums, it just makes it worth it. And you're building a community around the IP. So,
One of the fun things I do for all of the physical backers, and I don't know if I don't think I have one here, but I kind of jokingly, in my mind, Crossover Division is a kind of a bureaucratic institution, right?
Okay.
So I actually print out a letter, a form letter that's, welcome to Crossover Division, Agent blah blah blah,
Mm.
and thanks for joining the team, blah, things like that. But I actually write it kind of in universe,
Okay.
and down at the bottom you'll see that it's. Do you know what CC, carbon copy? This is like old school bureaucratic, okay?
Yeah.
I have like Pablo's name there as like regional director or something, and then I'm down at the bottom as janitor. And then I found, I think it was on Amazon, I found a red top secret stamp, and I got the ink, so every one of them I top secret, fold it up,
That's cool.
put it in there, and it's
personalized.
I have fun doing that. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, amazing. All right. Well, I think we are at the point. Let's reveal
it
with Crossover Division. It's the big reveal time.
I think you're first this time, Dave.
I am first this time.
Yeah.
I'm first this time. So I actually surprised myself by what I paired with this, because I read the comic. I kind of did one read through of the trade paperback, and for everyone's information, we have read the trade paperback, so issues 1 through 4, and the 2 8-page shorts. We have not read issue 5. We haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah.
But for those issues, this is it is a fun, light, like as Will said, it's not that dark, or at least it hasn't gotten that dark yet. So there's definitely an element of fun, lighthearted pulpiness to all the goings on. But at the same time, there's the literary works, right? I mean, these are like classic literary works of fiction that we're revisiting in fun ways, but some of them are like Les Mis, and some of them are, they have like, it's like, if you tried reading that, you ain't having a lighthearted fun time, folks. Like that is a different kind of experience. So I really thought that revisiting these different tales, and if you ever revisit even things like we've talked about Frankenstein and Jekyll and Hyde, and like they are dark, serious stories. Like there's a lot going on in those books if you read the actual novels. And anyone who's playing around with the characters, if they're playing around with them in ways that aren't just pure fun, like, we recently covered a comic called Frankenrocker and the Jailbait Punks. That was just freewheeling fun with the concept. Like they were like, no, this is not about what Mary Shelley's themes. Trust me. It's like, that is not what this is for. But you can absolutely do that. Just like with vampire stories, we can always revisit some of those themes from the original Dracula and, those old vampiric, because Dracula wasn't even the first. I believe like Green
Carmilla.
Tea and Carmilla and things like that were some of the old, and they were like novellas to short stories kind of a thing, but they were kind of introduced that concept first, and they were very dark as well in their own way. So, I wanted something, I'm like, what gets me in the mood to appreciate great literary works while also somehow having that, freewheeling fun that this particular story is. And I kind of wanted something that made me feel like I was sitting in a library, but then also, something where I was still sitting in a library reading a comic book. And so I needed that balance between the two for this. I thought about a couple of things. I think in a pinch, if you're budget conscious and need something really easy, I do think a dry rosé would do the trick. That's not my choice, but as a backup choice, I think if you get something, because rosé, it's refreshing, it's light, it's fun in its way. But if you get a true, like not a sweet, fruity rosé, but get it nice and dry where you're getting that pucker factor to it, a lot of minerality, really acidic and bright. And it's like that could balance pretty well. That was almost what I went with. But in the end of the day, I went with a Sherry PX, which is a Pedro Jimenez Sherry, which is it is like maple syrup in the glass. Yeah. It is so sweet, and you get it in like these small half bottles. You don't buy these in like giant things. And Pedro Jimenez is actually the name of the grape that they use to make this sherry, so that's why that's what it's called. And the PX is actually for P, and then Jimenez is spelled with an X rather than a J. Sometimes you can find it with a J for the other sides of the world that would use a J in that name. But where sherry is made in Spain, like they use the X. So it's PX, sherry, and this is one of the sweetest styles of sherry you can find. It is extremely dessert. You take small, 1-2 ounce pours at a time and just sip and savor. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. All sherries are a very taster's choice. Yeah, you have to develop the palate a little bit. Now, PX is the least taster's choice. Most people can get into that because of how sweet it is. It's kind of like maple syrup, where there's a lot of other flavors underneath the sweetness, but then you've got that huge sweetness right up front. But if you ever try a dry sherry, it is, and all sherries have this flavor profile with whatever sweetness they have, but they make sherry perfectly dry with hardly any residual sugar whatsoever. And it is like, I would compare it. I'm still trying to get into it. I'm not quite there yet. I keep sipping them and I'm like, I don't know about this. It's like if you took raw almonds, and not roasted almonds, not salted or seasoned in any way, just take skins on raw almonds, popped a nice handful in your mouth. Don't chew them, just suck on them. Okay. And then then take like a shot of vodka and get a little bit of that alcohol in there with it, and just let it sit in your mouth. And
it feels wild. It feels wild. It's like this. Feels
it is
wild.
It is. So it's often almonds are one of the flavors, like nuts, raw nuts, and I'm like, oh yeah, but that's like raw nuts that you're not even it's so dry. Yeah. It dries your mouth right out. And then it is like almond skins, only the skins. And it's got the flavor profile is like I said, dry sherry is something. Sherry is made by, it's an oxidized process. Mm-hmm. So they're letting it brown by oxidation. They're basically letting it go bad in its way, but in a controlled way. So that is what winds up making sherry. This is one of those things that kind of like Madeira. This is where Madeira, they actually let it go bad and cook it because it was one of those things where they used to transport wine in ships. And so it'd go overseas and through these tropical climates, just in barrels on the ship. And the wine cooked by no one knew it would do that. But then it wound up being better when they got to wherever they were going. And that's where that whole process kind of came from. So sherry, they let it oxidize on purpose in a controlled method and kind of go bad. So it browns really deep. But then dry sherry without that sugar, like I said, I'm working on it. There's a lot going on in that glass, but none of it what we would by default call pleasant. And so I'm not sure about that. I think that is something you just have to develop for a palate. At least I do. But sweet sherry, then you get those flavors. But when you take those flavors and dunk them into what is essentially maple syrup in a glass, but take all those raw nut skin, leathery flavors and a little bit of smokiness and put it in with that sugar, it makes you feel literary and erudite, but then it is fun in a glass, nevertheless. And it is that combination of both worlds. And it's not even, you drink it slow. So a half bottle of PX sherry is probably going to be like $30 or something around those lines, like 30, 35. It's not going to break your bank, likely, depending on who you are. It probably won't break your bank, but it is just a half bottle. But then you aren't drinking much at a time. And that is, for me, that was my pairing for Crossover Division.
All right. I like that. I see that. Yeah. You get that little earthy, a little sort of rooted in,
dusty,
tradition.
Earthy, dusty, leathery, and then sugar. Tons of sugar.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I took I also surprised myself with this pairing, actually. Because for the second week in a row, I've chosen a wine that I'm not a huge fan of on its own, the class.
Okay.
But
Will's like, why do they keep picking wines they don't like? God damn it.
But that's
what
the
is wrong
beauty
with
of
my comic?
You don't always have to like it for it to pair well with the thing you're pairing.
It's true.
True. Anyway, so with your piece here, Will, I just, I really enjoy as we discussed earlier, the kind of reaching back and taking that IP that everybody kind of recognizes and knows, and many of us don't know why we know it, or how we encountered it first, but it's just kind of it's just there in the ether. And I think you also do a great job of then sort of fictionalizing it and creating these kind of new arms and worlds and textures. And when we approach these pairings, I usually have one or two ways I pair. And it's either the wine, the spirit I want to drink as a character in the world of the IP, or the spirit I drink, when I get the chance to open the book and flip through it. And you do a thing.
By the way, Kevin Strange just joined us. Hello, Kevin. Welcome. We are in the final wine pairing, and then we're wrapping up, but welcome for the final 10 minutes. Here we go.
Yeah. I think you do something which I in your piece here, which I do appreciate, and is sort of pulpy in the traditional sense to me, in that you're taking these really accessible kind of concepts and, just taking them into directions that, people don't expect, and which I think is kind of the best kind of pulp for me, at least. And
thank you.
It's always so satisfying because, because it's rooted in something that's really accessible and you're familiar with, but you're going on a journey that you didn't expect. And that is so satisfying. That's an arc that always pays off. And I decided I wanted something that kind of mirrors that in an odd way. With my choice here, I knew I wanted something that kind of brought in the best of both worlds. And as Dave alluded to earlier, the dry rosé does that in many ways. For those who are unfamiliar, rosés in general, there's 3 or 4 methods of making a rosé. You can get the Saignée, which is basically like a bleed method. They sort of take some of the red wine juice and sort of it's pink and made into rosé.
Essentially.
Blended, essentially. You get the maceration technique, which is sort of they crush the grapes with the skin contact, and then there's a cool fermentation, and you get a direct pressing method, which is sort of the press and the juice runs off quickly. And the 4th method, which most people think is the dominant method, which is basically you get a pure blend of red and whites. And because of that, I decided to go with an actual blend of red and whites in this particular wine. It is a French Mediterranean rosé. The grapes are Merlot, Cab Sauv, Tannat, Cab Franc, and Petit Verdot. And it's
really French.
What'd you say?
Very French.
Oh, extraordinary. It's painfully French, actually. It is definitely dry. It is definitely dry, high acidity, and it's sort of a medium lightness, meaning you can kind of go through an entire bottle of this, and it doesn't slap you too far in either direction. It's not too astringent, not too dry. It's not too acidic. It's not too sweet because it is dry. But it's got a curious quality.
All of that is going on.
All that's going on, and it's very drinkable. Like it's great quaffability, and you get some strawberry in there. You get some peach, some citrus, and I chose this Il Saint-Pierre depuis. Can we see that?
Let me make you big real quick. Hold on. The
Il Saint-Pierre depuis.
And you can see he's enjoyed that bottle. It is mostly empty. That's you're right. It definitely and again, I'm not a rosé guy. I'm not a rosé guy because of that thing it does. It's almost too drinkable for me. I'm not a guy who enjoys guzzling his wine. Right? The contemplation is kind of part of the. It's just part of the baseline, the process for me. So, but this one is fairly complex, but also really drinkable, and lots of fun. And I love that we both had that dry rosé idea at one point. Like it was my runner-up, and it was your go-to. You found the one to do it. And we have had a couple people just suddenly show up in the last 5 minutes. So just that was Dallas's pairing, and mine was Perry Sherry PX. Yes, I was getting the P in there. It's a sherry, but PX for Pedro Jimenez, which is the sweetest sherry out there. Guys, you can only buy it in like small half bottles. It is like maple syrup in a glass, but with so much like old dusty book flavors in that maple syrup. It's perfect for this comic. And that is Will Allred's Crossover Division. I just put the link in the comments for the latecomers as well. So do check that out. It is literary works crossing over into our world and coming back to life. That's the agents who deal with this crossover. Amazing comic. 5th issue is currently on Kickstarter.
Check it out, guys.
All right, Will. Yes. And to wrap us up, Will, you are going to shout out a comic that you are loving and a beverage that you are pairing with it. So what do you got for us, my man?
Let's see. Let's stick with something that's on Kickstarter now.
Cool.
I'm a big fan of M.K. Palmer's Meraki book. We were talking about that earlier.
Yes.
It is. It's really beautiful, gorgeous art, kind of some Greek heroes and monsters, all with a really LBGTIA front and center forward message to it. With that, it's so pretty. It really is
great,
pretty book.
Really sharp imagery. Gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I live in the South. That's a lemonade on the front porch.
Yeah.
Sitting down.
It's a porch sipper.
Cracking open a comic.
Yeah.
Drinking some lemonade and reading a comic.
Right.
See, lemonade is one of the best drinks that is comparable to wine because it's got that acidity and astringency of the lemon juice with that then balanced by the sweetness of, which is like if you knew how much sugar you had to dump in lemonade to lemon juice to make it drinkable, it's actually a lot. It doesn't taste that sweet because of all the other things going on. Wine is so similar to that. So yeah, lemonade, Meraki. I put that link in the chat for everyone as well because that Kickstarter is also going on as we speak. And yeah, Will, you poor dear, you're in Arkansas, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Unfortunately,
Yes.
Please don't hold my governor against me.
No. I know plenty of good people in Arkansas. I more feel for you than have judgment against you. So I know. Where are you? Are you at least like in Little Rock or like a bigger city of Arkansas or?
I'm up in Northwest Arkansas at Fayetteville.
Okay.
So
Fayetteville. Okay,
Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, and Bentonville are kind of really one big city. So
the 3 titans of that region, right?
There's some big businesses here, yeah. And if you don't want to work for those mega corporations, that might explain why I worked for the University of Arkansas for so long.
There you go.
The other industry. There you go. Yeah. All right, guys. Fantastic. I think we're closing out here. One last time, Will Allred's Crossover Division, link in the comments. That is going on for 8 more days. They're almost funded, so go over there, get them. And Will wants to get back up to 300 plus backers. They're at about 150 plus now. So get over there, throw them $1, $1. That's going to help. That's going to move that needle if that's all you can give. But the comic is really worth your time. So get the digital edition if you don't have much money to spend and you want the comic, and get more. We went over all the insane number of covers he has between the first 5 issues that you can collect, and there's a lot. So go check that out. And then Meraki, which is what he just mentioned, I also threw that link down there. I'm going to go check that comic out because he was talking that up earlier in the show. And it sounds amazing, and I've got to go see that. And MK Palmer did your animatics for the video in Crossover Division. And those are play that video. Okay, play the first half of the video. And ignore once Will shows up. Apparently that's the wrong video. He's going to fix that. But go check out those animatics because they are very cool. All right, guys. Once again, Wine and Comics, Will Allred, Crossover Division. Thank you, everyone, for listening, for commenting, and we are gone. Good night for now. Check you next time, everyone.